It's always a good day to find some new ink colors, and Catherine Fuller Designs has three, not one, not two, but three brand new spa colors that they're adding to their collection. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video I'll be sharing those three new colors as well as some of the Lasso Life collection. So let's take a look at the items that I'll be working with today. So the first ink pad that we'll check out is the Glacier Ink Pad. This is a nice deep dark blue. Then we have Succulent. It's a really mid-great green. And then Cashmere, which honestly, I had no idea what to expect from Cashmere. It is such a great light neutral, and I'll show you how I used it in the video later on. Here I'm using one of the small stamps from one of the stamp sets that I'll be working with just to stamp out these inks so you can see how they dry, how they look as they're stamped out, and you can see some of the other dark blues that I have up top and how different Glacier is. This is the Happy Horseshoes stamp set. There are dies that cut out all of the images there, and you can stamp the sentiments on the horseshoes as well. Lastly, I have the Lasso Life. It's a sentiment stamp set. Now, let's use those new supplies to make some cards. First, let's stamp some of the horseshoes from the Happy Horseshoes stamp set. So this large horseshoe I'll be stamping with the Glacier ink. It looks so much darker than I think it ends up looking on the cardstock. Right now it still looks very dark, but as it smooths out, it's going to lighten a little bit. And that horseshoe has some open spaces of stars. Yeah, you could color them in. I kind of like them white. For the smaller horseshoe, I did use the Succulent ink, and for those little 4-leaf clovers, I used Succulent ink as well. For the stars, I used All That Jazz, and now I'm swiping All That Jazz along the edges of an A2 piece of white cardstock. That's going to be my background mat. Then I'll take all of those matching dies and cut out everything that I've stamped so far. Next, I'll swipe some of the Succulent ink onto my glass mat and spray some water on it. These inks are always reactive with water. So the Catherine Fuller inks really do a whole bunch of different things, and reacting with water is one of them. I also like the way that those splatters look in the Succulent ink. It's just a different kind of splatter than I have in my stash. So it's nice to know you can do that with any of the Catherine Fuller inks. I did stamp the Lucky You sentiment from the Happy Horseshoes. It's in a curved sentiment. I stamped that at the top of that panel of cardstock that I spritzed, and then I'm adding my horseshoes and 4-leaf clovers and stars. I decided we needed a couple more stars, so I stamped those as well and die cut them out, and I'm popping everything up on some foam squares from Spellbinders. Just a really simple card, and it's just fun to create with these new colors. For this next card, I'll actually be making a rainbow of horseshoes. I'm starting with cotton candy ink, and I feel like less is more with the Catherine Fuller inks. I like to tap them onto my stamp lightly so that the ink doesn't smush because of the foam ink pad, which means that sometimes I end up stamping them 2 or 3 times. I'd rather start with less and then add in more as I continue to stamp than to overdo it on my first application and then have to get rid of that because it's smooshed all over the place. So I have a few different inks here. This last one, that little purple, is frosted, and then I'll die cut them all out. Now here's that Cashmere ink, and remember I said it's a really nice light neutral. So once again, when you swipe direct to paper like this, it's such a smooth application because of that foam pad, and it looks quite dark at first, but just continue to watch it and it's going to lighten up into this really pretty off-white beige kind of sandy color, which really looks great with pretty much anything, which is really nice to have that neutral in your stash. The sentiment I stamped with the Glacier ink, remember that will lighten up a little as well, but it is a nice dark blue. So if you're looking for something different than black to stamp your sentiments, I love checking out a nice dark blue for something a little bit different. This time I'm stamping some of the flowers. There's a large and a small flower, and in a different few different colors of the rainbow ink that I chose for the horseshoes and then pop those up. Such a fun card to create. Love these horseshoes and the sentiments, and they're just so much fun to play with. For this card, I wanted to do some ink blending and use the Cosmic cover plate. Now, my first instance was to ink blend and then cut it, but once it's so soft and a little damp from the ink, it's really difficult to get out those little pieces. So I recommend die cutting first and then ink blending over that. I'm just using a basic domed foam blender, and here you can see that Glacier. Once again, it's going to look super dark at first and then it will lighten up. I had some ink left on the side, so I spritzed it with some water and I grabbed a brush and just soaking up that colored water, and then I'll just tap on that brush to create some splatters on top. Now remember I said that the inks are reactive with water, so you're not going to see dark blue splatters on top of these colors. They're actually going to turn into little white dots where the ink reacts with water. I'll place some liquid adhesive behind that die cut panel and place that on top of an A2 piece of white cardstock. Next, I'll take another piece of A2 white cardstock and treat it with anti-static powder tool. Then I'll use the silver ink from Catherine Pooler Designs. This is a pigment ink, so it's going to stay wet for a long time. In order to really dry it up, I'm adding some silver sparkle embossing powder on top, and I'll heat set that, and now that pigment ink won't smear at all. You can also add a spray cover on top of it that will seal it, and that will keep it from spreading as well. Next, I'll take one of the sentiments from the Happy Horseshoes and a couple of the paisleys from that stamp set and stamp that in the Glacier ink. I'm using that horseshoe die to cut out the Howdy Partner. You can see I missed a piece of that white cardstock on the one side. That's okay, I'm going to cover it up with that silver horseshoe anyway, and then pop up those paisleys on top. Love that sparkle shine on the horseshoe, and those colors in the back blend together so beautifully. You know that I always gravitate towards the bright collections, but it is so nice to have some spa inks to mix into your brights to add some depth and dimension to your cards. But let me know what you think about the new colors and collection in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon.